And welcome this Sunday morning, October 30th, 2011, to Conscious Conversations. I'm Charlotte McGinnis, and I have a tremendous gift to share with all you all today. I can't say enough about Ann for many reasons, because first of all, I met Ann through the Alliance of Divine Love ministerial classes that I was facilitating. And the last group that I had on the first class, Ann shared a very, very powerful story with us. But not only that story, which we'll get to in a minute, but where that opened up her abilities to heal and be a healer and be a presence of light and love. So it's so many levels to this message that are so powerful for all of us. And Ann is a Alliance of Divine Love minister now. She is a facilitator of women's circle groups and also healing touch practitioner. So really integrating all these wonderful modalities as a means to extending and sharing her light and gifts as a means for all of us to heal and awaken. So Ann, welcome to Conscious Conversations.
Thank you, Charlotte. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. So anyway, and congratulations on becoming a reverend this year. That's very, very exciting.
Thank you.
And our ministry is blessed by your commitment to that. So, Ann, I'll just, get to the first part of the story, which was that when you shared with us the first class, because I'm a teacher, I'm a student and teacher of A Course in Miracles, and through that, the Course says our only function, true function in this world is to forgive. And, so many times I see people, oh, I can't forgive that SOB or that son of a gun, they're horrible people, and how can you ever forgive this situation? Well, some people think it's impossible to cross a certain line to offer forgiveness. And your story demonstrates such a wonderful example of what you did is a gift for all of us. So would you mind to just tell us a story, please?
Okay. In July of 1990, I was teaching chemistry up in Manassas, Virginia. Closer? Okay. And in the summer times, I ride my bicycle. It's one of my passions is to get out on the parkway or on the road and ride my bike. And there are all these little synchronicities about this story, but I'll just cut to the chase. So I was out riding my bicycle on a particular morning in July, and a man came up and asked me for directions. And I went to my bike bag to get out my map, and he promptly turned around and hit me in the face, and then he pulled me into the woods and raped me. And it's interesting to me because people's first response to that is to really shudder. And I think even the word rape has such a charge on it that it's hard for people to stomach. I think that for me, that incident, as horrific as it was on a long-term basis, was a huge blessing for me. And in the process of walking that path of healing, it gave me the opportunity to look at all the ways that that event or any event that's really challenging for us to go through holds gifts that help us in life and ultimately help other people because of it. So, I don't know if you have specifics.
Well, I love your story about you knew you had to forgive, and what happened years later. The encounter with him.
So, yeah, early on, well, backing up, the man was not identified. I cooperated with police and law enforcement, and it was just one of those incidences they couldn't quite figure out. It was never solved. Not never, but I'll get to that part. So I moved to Asheville the following year and really wanted to get away from the city, and I was grateful to be here. It felt like a really healing place. And within about 5 years, I really needed to let it go. I held on to it. I had a lot of post-traumatic stress, and a lot of things were going on physically in my body that were a result of the trauma of that. And at some point along there, I had this dream about this man, and I really got that he too had a really tough path. And not that that gives him the right to behave that way. I certainly don't condone his behavior. But I got that, you know, life is hard, people do what they do, and it's important for me to lay this down. And so I did. I put it down, but my body held on to it. There's a memory in our cells that can hang on. And my daughter was born in October of 2003, and it's interesting because the brunt of what happened to me showed up in my pelvis and hips. And in January of 2004, the first week of January, I stood in my living room and I said out loud, "This will be my year of strength," because I didn't feel it, but I wanted to really affirm that for myself. And my body it's the first thing to tell me if something's shifting. And within a day, it had really gone out of balance. It was completely tweaked. And so I knew something was up. And the next day, the detective called from Manassas, Virginia. I hadn't heard from him in 10 years. So it was 14 years later, and he said, "We've identified through DNA who it was who raped you." And so that year was really my year of strength. And it was such a blessing because I was asked to appear in the courtroom and to make a statement, and I had no idea what I was going to say because so many years later, I didn't buy into being a victim of that. I really saw how many gifts had come from it, and to write a victim impact statement didn't feel like it was congruent for me. And so I sat for months with it, and it was supposed to happen in April of that year, and then it was postponed until the fall. And as I worked on how to play around with words to express what my experience had been, I was also blessing that man, because I knew I would see him in the courtroom, and I really wanted to connect with him on a heart level and be at ease with where I was with seeing him. And it went to court in October of that year, and I went up to Manassas, and I got in the courtroom, and he was sitting in front of me. His name is Terry, and the judge asked if he would like to make a statement, and so he stood up, and the first thing he did was he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "Miss Ann, thank you for forgiving me." And we had not spoken, so it really got that, you know, what we do energetically, what we put out affects everyone. And that he had the awareness to get that and to be able to articulate that to me was a huge confirmation for me and a huge gift. And so from that, I encourage you all to just love people and bless them, because you don't know what the gift is that they are offering you through coming into your life, even as horrible as it may seem in the moment.
Well, that is such a powerful expression of what so many people struggle with. I think that is, you know, being able to let go of past hurts is so difficult for people. So as a counselor and as a healer, when people come to you, how do you practically engage them and guide them to release these old hurts?
Well, you know, the work I do in the world is healing work, and it takes a lot of different forms. And I don't know if it's so much what I do, but just providing the space for somebody else to walk into what it is that they need to do. And I think we all know at some level the truth about a situation, but because of the way that we're acculturated or the way that we've been brought up, we will sometimes grab onto beliefs that aren't really true. And I think it's really about us checking in with ourselves and getting to that core truth, that core central truth that's bigger than the other small t truths that might come into us as we live our life. But I do healing touch, so sometimes I'm working in people's energy field to help them ground out some energy or transform some things. And in my women's circles, everyone has an opportunity to share openly where they are at that particular moment. And then I offer reflection, and other women in the circle offer reflection for where they are, coming from their own heart-centered truth.
Well, so you mentioned the women's healing circles and your healing touch, which is all just different reflections of the same goal. And you also do something that I think is so fascinating with the dolls. Would you tell us about the dolls you work with? Because I think that is amazing. So and I saw you brought some.
See my friends over there. I actually hadn't planned on bringing them, but this morning they were screaming to me. So I brought them along, and my dolls have been something I've been working with for about the past 5 years. And they're all messengers. They've come in to offer messages to me and to other people, and I have them in my healing space. So oftentimes I'll draw on their energies as I do the healing work that I do. But I got into dolls because when this incident all came up again with going back to court, it brought up a lot of stuff for me that needed to be healed. And I wanted to do it in a fun way. And I didn't want to do talk therapy. I didn't want to do it in a traditional way that I had done. And I didn't want to do it in a way that felt like I was staying in the energy of something that didn't feel good or support me in the best way. And at the time, I was really fascinated by art dolls, and so I was looking at all these pictures of them. And in the midst of it, came across this website of this woman who does a medicine wheel of healing dolls. It was called the Medicine Doll Classwork. And so I joined her group. Her name is Barb Covey, and she's this wonderful, wise woman. And she lives in the Midwest, and she guided me and some other women around the world, because it's a virtual group, through this process of a medicine wheel, whereby we would make a guardian doll, which I didn't bring because it's hanging on my wall. And then you make your scapegoat, which is the most challenging part of it, because that's putting outside of you something that's on the interior that's really uncomfortable to look at. And so it's externalizing that piece of you that needs a special attention from you. And with each doll, I journal and gather the messages that are there for me. And then after that, you make a loving kindness doll, which I brought my Mother of Compassion. And then I'm still working on my talisman. It's been 5 years. But I love the process. And in the midst, there have been some others that have come in as messengers for particular pieces that I get to take a look at. I brought one of a being of lightness that's got wings over there. You can see that one. And the other one is one that is an unraveling of the black and white, because there was a piece of my healing that was about those beliefs that we hold that are right or wrong. Well, this is the right way to go. Wait a second. And so you'll see it's unraveling this garment of black and white checkers, and underneath is this beautiful, vibrant color and all these beads, and I really see that that's what this path is about. That we get to decide in the moment what resonates with us, and it's all individual. There's not a right or wrong. So.
Well, they are powerful, and there's so many wonderful messages that you've shared with us today, and we'll continue to do this afternoon, and we'll talk about the workshop in a bit. But I would like to congratulate you on having two beautiful children, and your parenting skills obviously are very good. And I know a lot of parents are struggling with, you know, raising kids in this environment, which is seems crazy right now. How do you keep your children so well balanced and nurtured in this environment?
Well, you asked me this on Thursday, and I just say love them. Love them where they are and be present with them. And I know for me, the gift in their presence is being able to really access the truth in a very pure way. And yesterday, for example, my husband and my son were out of town, and so I got to spend mother-daughter time with my daughter, and we love that time because there's nothing like being just one-on-one with somebody to really access who they are and what they have to share in that moment. And we both love it. We both get that. My daughter has just turned 8, and she loves it too. And I think that the most important thing that anybody can do as a parent or as a friend or as a lover is to be present with someone. Just open your heart and be present.
Very good. Well, Anne, there's so many wonderful things we could continue in a future conversation, but I would like to offer anyone out here an opportunity to ask a question or a comment if you'd like.
Hyla. Yeah. When you were speaking about the gifts that you gained from your experience, can you list some specific ones? Because other people who've been in that situation may say, what are the gifts that you got from that, besides the ability to forgive and have compassion for another human being?
Well, that's certainly part of it.
Yeah.
There are so many. It really has opened my heart in so many ways, and helped me to see that the world is not black and white. I grew up in a family that was very academic, and there was a certain way of doing things, and there was an organization of the world that I took on, and I really had to loosen myself around all of that, and in doing so, open myself to this beautiful palette of what's available to us here. The other piece that's really huge for me is that, and this is another one of those synchronicities, that the morning I went out biking, I set an intention for that day. And that was that I had recently come across this friend, and he had this very strong faith. And he talked about his faith like no one I'd ever met. And he was so certain with it. And I wanted that. I was 26 years old. I was searching for who I was in the world, and I wanted that. I wanted what he had, but I couldn't quite grasp how he did that. And so I set the intention that morning to go out and ride the roads that Ted and I had ridden because I wanted to connect with his faith. And interestingly, what happened to me was I chose to go down this particular road and face what I faced. And it has brought me to a very deep faith and a very deep knowing of myself and trusting of who I am in the world. So it's huge.
Let me ask, did the court accept your forgiveness of this man? Or did they pursue their own agenda?
Well, interestingly, this man, Terry, he would have been, because of the new laws that had come about, there were 3 charges against him, and he would have been only charged for 2. I don't really quite remember all the specifics of the grandfathering in of certain things because it was so far past the incident. He was actually in West Virginia prison for some other things that he had done, and he was going to remain there through age, 50-something, and then he would be transferred to Virginia prison, and he still would probably get out before he died if he had, a good amount of years in him.
And however, when the judge asked him what he thought he deserved, he said, I need to be locked up for life because I know that I will do this again if I get out. And so that's what they gave him.
Wow.
So he chose his path, essentially.
Amazing. Any other questions?
I just want to say I find it wonderful that you can speak of him with his name. I think that's just wonderful, amazing.
I feel a heart connection with him. I don't know what he feels for me,
Yeah.
But it's as if an angel came in and touched me really deeply. And, you know, how do you thank someone for opening this up for me, you know?
Yeah.
There are no words. So, it's sweet. We don't know. We just don't know. Yeah.
Did you ever talk to him again after the court session?
I did not.
No. No, they took him away. Yeah.
Is that also what catapulted you into your women's groups?
You know, it's interesting. I was very resistant to doing women's groups, but when I did my apprenticeship for my Healing Touch, all these women came and said, would you be willing to sit in a circle with some women and do some teaching? I said, no. And then finally I heard it enough that I said, okay, I'm just going to start saying I'm doing it. So I started telling women, I'm going to offer these women's circles. Would you be interested? And they all said yes. So that was how it happened. It was more handed to me. And I just listened.
That's great.
Joyce, I know you were going to...
Yeah, it's just an interesting, I mean, your story is fascinating, and bless you for sharing it. As I was listening to you, though, I wondered, for all of us, do we choose our lessons to the degree that we need to learn them? I mean, did that ever cross your mind that it took Terry to teach you and help you learn what you needed to learn? In other words, it crossed my mind that for those women, for us, men too, what happened to you has to be almost the worst possible thing that we could conceive of. However, it turned out to be exactly the blessing that you needed. So as I sit here thinking about my life, as we sit here thinking about our lives, I guess what I'm asking you is, do you believe that it took that degree of lesson to have you get it? I don't know how to say that without being unkind, and please forgive me if there's any unkindness in that.
No. I hear what you're saying, and I have sat with this quite a bit, because when I first started considering the why of this, I was at a place where I had forgiven it but was still dealing with it on a physical level, and I was also learning science of mind, which is all about we get what we seek. And so I really got that on some level I needed this. And I knew that I had asked for it. I set the intent that day for finding this path, not that I wanted it to happen this way. Perhaps I could have said, I really like this to be gentle. But, and I do choose gentle in a lot of situations now when I set my intents. I'm very choosing gentle. However, there's another piece that has come to me that it really feels true to me that I signed up for this. And this is part of my gift to others, because so many women and men have been abused in some way. And I think it's important to get the message that our abusers are not someone that we need to hold anger with. It's important to look beyond this person who's before us and look beyond those emotions that are coming up within us and center ourselves in our heart and our core truth and embrace what's before us. So I really feel like I signed up for this somehow, and I don't quite understand that piece entirely, but that's what's come to me when I asked the question.
Yeah, and I honor that. Also, as a Science of Mind student, I think that's why I asked you that question, because that would certainly be a reflection of their teaching, is that what we get is what we ask for. And it's in our wildest human emotions as women, certainly none of us could imagine asking for that experience.
Yes. Right.
So the only way that I would know how to turn that around is to say, man, I didn't ask for this exact experience, but it was really, I needed that degree of
Right. Oh, I needed to
shock
be shaken.
therapy.
I needed to be shaken up.
Yeah.
I was very rigid, and I had a certain way of doing things, and that was just how I, how I grew up. And yeah, I needed to be shaken up. And it's interesting because I've had to really look at this because I've been a crisis counselor with our Voice, the Rape Crisis Center in Buncombe County, and their premise is to never blame the victim, and that can sound like blame.
It does, and that's why I wanted to be so careful. Right.
So, but I have asked that very deeply of myself, and I believe, yes, on some level I asked for this, and I even said it out loud that morning in a different way as for what I was looking for. And I needed to be shaken up to find my faith, to find a true faith, not to find some religion that I could pretend to believe in, because that's how I had been brought up.
Thank you for your, please
Yeah.
forgive any
Oh,
sense
no, not at all. No worries.
of blame or
I'm
judgment.
totally good. I appreciate the question.
Well,
Yeah. Well, would you also say that he kind of had a contract with you as well?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Because I wonder about those scenarios, like there's so much in it for all concerned.
Yes.
That there's an agreement made somewhere. Like, when you speak of him, I feel that you knew him somewhere before.
Oh, I think that we've been together in other lives.
Yeah.
And yet, in those other lives, I feel as if it was a more gentle,
Yeah.
loving relationship.
Yeah.
Surprisingly,
Yeah.
And so, I think that, again, we just never know how things are being orchestrated in the divine plan, that I set an intention and perhaps he sets an intention. They might be completely unconscious, and that is how we come together for those few minutes in time to do our path and let it unfold. Yeah.
You mentioned that it took, it was 14 years later when this came to court.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you, it's like as if the court date was just a 3D reflection of the forgiveness coming to the surface. Would you also talk about, I know you mentioned about the forgiveness was happening in the meantime, but do you think that there's a faster way to bring this to the surface, that perhaps the rendering of the 3D forgiveness could happen sooner?
I certainly think it could have happened sooner. I guess that I have seen that things happen in the perfect and right timing, when I'm ready for it. And I would love to have gotten to that sooner, I suppose, if I could turn back time. However, I needed all the pieces that I had put in place to get there, including training to be a science of mind practitioner. I was almost complete with that, and I needed that piece to go and stand in that courtroom. And then I was asked to be on national television. I was on Good Morning America with Diane Sawyer, and I needed that piece. I needed to be able to stand there and be clear with her beforehand about exactly what I wanted, to know that I could do that, and to really be able to state that solidly. And I didn't have those tools till then to really hold that truth and to stand with it. So there are all those pieces that needed to be put in place to get there. And yes, it could have happened sooner. And I think that things can happen much quicker now. Like, I really see that we were able to turn things around and to, emote what we need to emote and get to that clarity and resolution much faster now than we could. Felt like I was plodding through things at times and could see the light, but couldn't quite embody it.
well, and which is unusual. They're like, oh, that's impossible.
What about the workshop? What's the workshop?
What's that?
What's the workshop?
Well, no, we'll talk about that after.
Okay.
But anyway, that being said, I know that two of the things we teach here and talk about are forgiveness, and we talk about contracts, sacred contracts that we have. And, talking about them is one thing, but to have your experience and your heart sharing today really puts it into a whole new light and level for all of us. So I really thank you from my heart that you were so open and willing to share that. Because I know everyone, I can feel the energy in here, and I know we've all been touched deeply. And I'm sure the people watching this will be as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you. Yeah.